Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this narration of the web series The Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 85. Memory Transcription Subject Chief Hunter Isif, Oxor Dominion Sector Fleet. State Standardized Human Time December 1st, 2136. The Earthborn holopad in my possession was alien hardware. Dominion resources weren't equipped to track it. I made sure the device was well encrypted and could pass it off as a top-secret research if asked about it. It allowed me to monitor anonymous Oxor forums where anger and sedition were brewing. Betterman's grip on risks had waned as word of Federation omnivores circled back home. Many citizens saw other meat-eaters as victims of the same predator hatred that crippled us. The converts were genuine sapiens, distorted by the enemy. Those revelations didn't inspire faith in our diet, nor did the Dominion's inability to reform. Starvation is a good motivator for unrest. These forums have been safe spots for talks of the food alternatives raised by the Terran's existence. The humans are the predators we want to be, I read one comment aloud. Perhaps our resistance movement could be officially recognized. Their support would lend our legitimacy. My shuttle was on a landing approach to the farm habitat. I digested the reminder of my purpose quickly. The humans were our hope at changing the status quo, and they were the only aliens who saw us as people. Our carnivory made alliances unobtainable with most of the galaxy. There was a reason our search for true life persisted through the centuries. As long as we were isolated and starving, individuals like Shazar and Giznal would maintain power. Our plight was how Betterment retained control, stirring up perpetual hatred. The Federation caused our predicament, after all. Draconian measures, as the humans would say, were necessary, and lesser individuals hindered our collective welfare. The holobad was tucked back into a drawer as docking protocols were completed. I disembarked to the hangar bay, and Chief Hunter Shazar greeted me. The fattened guards flanking her were indicative of the cattle-rich location. Farms were coveted postings, awarding based on bloodlines. This cushy detail was one reserved for those whose genes were desirable. Shazar, you look absolutely vicious, I barked. Chief Hunter narrowed her eyes. Don't get flirtatious, Isif. This is a professional visit. I merely respect a worthy adversary. The feeling is mutual, yes? Indeed. I suppose we can spare a minute for pleasantries. The tour is mandatory for another sector's lead hunter. Cattle farms are a delight. Nothing like a satisfactory meal at the ready. Shall we proceed? The female Oxor stalked forward, her torso positioned at a sharp angle. I mimicked her lunging posture and ensured that my elderly pace kept up with hers. This farm habitat was a pride of Shazar's sector, with its compact design. Rather than the traditional pens with overhead guards walking, her designs utilized crawlspace trapdoors for retrieval. Oxor could monitor prey from viewing panes and administer negative feedback with a button array. The hangar spilled into a narrow hallway, which the cattle pens visible on both sides. The enclosure to my left housed Harkin, who were in poor condition. I could see flaky scales speeding off their hides and their sunken eyes in a listless daze. These reptiles were lethargic, having lost the will to move around. It was pitiful to see a sapient mind reduced to a husk. Harkin territory was the closest to the facility, but that didn't stop Shazar from ferrying in other livestock. To the right, I could see the newest species in her domain, the yodel, exotic by all accounts. The smooth-skulled marsupials showed a bit of life, though I saw glassiness in their eyes. These uplifts played no part in what happened to our people, and supposedly hadn't latched onto the fear ideology yet. I worked with the marsupials on Earth, so I knew they sided with the humans because they felt ostracized. Active hostilities between the Oxor and friendly prey were unnecessary. There was a truce going since the Battle of Earth, extending to the three species that offered aid. However, unlike the Zeruleans and Venlo, the Yodel weren't in my domain. I couldn't stop Shazar from renouncing my pact. Most chief hunters are accepting any human allies as Oxor allies, despite Betterment's official silence, but Shazar sees no reason not to round up primitive herbivores. I forced a look of disinterest. How do the yodel taste? They don't look like anything special. The taste is quite strong, stays in your mouth for a while. Dry, too, Shazar replied. The flavor profile is not my favorite, but some of the guards like it. I'm sure the underlings have simpler palates than us. Civ. The masses will eat what they're given. The important thing is how well the Yodel breed. Our herd here will gather the data to determine their viability. It's hard to match the Civkits and the Ceruleans. Oh, or the Vendel. How could you give them up? Calculated risk. Skepticism flared on her amber eyes, but the chief hunter continued our walk in silence. I kept my gaze ahead, not wanting to look at the cramped Yodel pen. That defective voice was restless after interacting with the helpers on Earth. I was relieved there hadn't been any gracious offers to sample the product. My mind was elsewhere as Shazar guided me to the guard quarters, a crocodile aviary, and 2 more Harken pens. If this was a crowning achievement of Oxal society, what scathing commentary did the drum up about our people? Billions of sapiens were in similar misery, and cognizant of their continued suffering. It was a fate deserved by no one. The chief hunter led me into the kitchen facilities, where corpses dangled from the ceiling. The scent of gutted Harken struck my nostrils, an aroma that kicked my olfactory glands. My body was conditioned to associate certain blood types with meals. Saliva production and eye dilation were involuntary responses. I could hear my stomach rumbling despite being well fed. How did humans suppress intrusive instincts without any discomfort? I wasn't an animal, of course. I wasn't going to strike down any herbivore just because they were bleeding. That didn't mean my nostrils would have their interest piqued. However, on Earth's internet, the impulses they discussed towards their prey had nothing to do with sudden hunger. So our second-to-last stop, this is where we process food, Shazar narrated. Is this the part where you get to addressing Fall and Celis? I lashed my tail. 2 territories which belong to us. I agree that we should get them back. However, it's in our best interest to attempt loathsome diplomacy for their recovery. Why are you so keen on appeasing these weaker predators? They shouldn't get away with blatant insults. Ha ha! At least humans aren't so dreadfully boring, yes? They did offer compensation for their overreach. They see our raids as wasteful of resources and view this as a chance to build a decadent empire. I don't want their leftovers, Isif. I want them to get out the fucking way. Shazar exhaled with a frustrated breath and sank her serrated fangs into her lower maw. The hostility in her gaze suggested a different approach was required. This was about personal pride more than resources. This sector's chief hunter didn't care if humans could supply more goods than us. No percentage of the haul would be sufficient to allow their incursion. Humans bossing us around and calling the shots exacerbate the situation. They're lucky they didn't get nuked then and there. You ask why I tolerate such things, Shazar, I sighed. The truth is, I want to keep Earth's guns pointed at the Federation. I'm using humans to make the Dominion a supreme, unchallenged power. Using humans? I was under the impression they're using you. The UN are clueless to our aims, because Zhao is blind and on the warpath. Earth's silly coddling is causing the prey to collapse. Meanwhile, their manpower performs the heavy lifting against the main Federation factions. Their manpower, riddled with lesser creatures, even their own ships are a tribute from the Venlo, the weak, sniveling, knock-kneed prey. Humans are bungling everything. Nothing is bungled. They'd do anything for victory, and pitting the animals against each other. It's brilliant. Our enemies will be destroyed without us lifting a claw. You're saying that you really want to use them to fight the war for us? Precisely. Our victory has been delayed for long enough, for centuries. What are Fall and Silas compared to bringing down the entire house? We don't need humans to destroy the Federation, though. We aren't weak. We aren't dependent on others. It's not that we cannot do it ourselves. It's about preserving our strength for a worthy adversary. The Federation doesn't contain enjoyable foes. Let someone else take the trash. Shazar issued a low chuckle and stalked past an icebox of a crocodile carcasses. Fresh prey was preferable, but not always possible during military operations. It was inefficient to build cattle enclosures into every warship and garrison. Larger ships could accommodate active livestock, but this facility was suited to ration exportation too. I could see that my words causing the chief hunter to reconsider her strategy. The humans could be framed as efficient soldier slaves, who didn't require any oversight. At worst, the Terran advanced softened Federation defenses and pulled species away from the enemy coalition. As purely a numbers game, the tactical benefit was obvious. My nose distracted me again as we wandered into a hangar beside the butchery. Adjustable tunnels of barbed wire sat beside docking ports, built to load and unload cattle. This must be the shipping department, where any new catch was processed. It also provided a way to ship living prey out to the fleet for fresh consumption. Shazar cleared her throat. Your idea is clever, but humans can't believe that they have the authority over us. Their soldiers need a kick in the teeth. It's unbecoming of an Arxel commander to surrender territory without a fight. If dignity is worth more than our overall success, then your mind is set. My pupils darted over the barbed wire enclosure, where the tangy aroma originated. Ceruleans were crammed into the unloading area, mewling pitifully. Wait, why do you have prey from my sector? Relax, Isiv. Some idiot volunteers went speeding off in a medical ship to rescue Crocodile civilians. We intercepted them and brought them here. Shazar shouldn't be capturing human-allied species at all. This jeopardizes everything I worked on. The UN are pressing me to barter these guys, release as well. Thoughts of Cerulean medics in New York ran through my mind. There was a unique earnestness in their efforts to save human patients. The little furballs were dedicated to preserving life, even those of people they believed were monsters. What other species would fly unarmed medical ships into Arxel occupation? Emotional concerns warred with my logic. I knew that my only objective should be talking Shazar down, but I felt sick to my stomach, despite how good their scent was. My defective voice couldn't bear to see friendlies shipped off to slaughter. My interactions made their personhood all too real, not a harsh fact I pushed aside with ease. One Cerulean was sobbing, with a despondent paws pressed against the wire. Her stomach quaked and green blood was smeared across her little nose. The pleading quality in her eyes paralyzed me. I couldn't bring myself to ignore the herbivore's plight. My position gave me leeway to induce a more favorable outcome, so bartering attempt was logical. Persuasion wasn't working on Shazar anyways. My objective shifted in a heartbeat to a species more worthy of salvation than the Tillfish or the Harkin. The humans would have to deal with the war they'd brought upon themselves. My throat was dry. I see. Well, on the topic of injured prey, I will not press further on fallen settlers, but I can't leave this vicinity without a consolation prize. So you admit defeat. What is it that you want from me? The female Arxel hissed. A few of those Ceruleans. Humans claim they make great pets, and I'd like to test that for myself. I've been devoid of amusement for all too long. I can always carve them up once on board. That's an odd request, though. I'd like to see them scrubbing your tail scales. I'll grant your wish, Isiv. Are 2 prime specimens sufficient? 3 is what I had in mind. Humans keep more at hand, but these will dish out enough whining for 1 Arxel. Oh, and I'd like the crying one specifically. It's a prime example of what makes these animals lesser. The chief hunter bared her teeth and snatched the tear-stained Cerulean with haste. She deposited the quadruped into a scratchy sack, indifferent to any yelps. Tilting her head, she picked out 2 more prizes, a young, healthy Cerulean of each sex. Shazar dragged the cattle bag across the floor and whispered for the guards to bring it to my ship. I breathed a sigh of relief as I realized the layout subtly brought us back to the starting point. My landing hangar was next to the shipping facility, which allowed for a swift exit. The hosting Arxel were all about rushing me off. Chief Hunter Shazar displayed ostensible irritation, weary of my visit. My social tolerance was higher than most Arxels, but this specific company did not suit my tastes. There was no reason to prolong my travels. I offered a tepid farewell and boarded my craft without delay. The bag of Ceruleans had been thrown on the floor, like it was any other junk. The herbivores screamed their heads off and flopped around inside the sack. I ignored the parcel, lumbering up to the cockpit. Jetting away from the farm habitat was done with a few buttons, and a course was set for my territory. Unease swelled in my chest as I realized how rash my snatch and grab was. What significance did these 3 cattle have in the big picture? I crouched over the Cerulean package. What on risks am I going to do with these guys? Any normal Arxel will think I'm mad. A paw reached out into the sack and scooped the warm bundles out. The Ceruleans wiggled and screeched at my touch before bolting away. I watched as they disappeared into the crevices and supply closets. The fools didn't realize I could sniff them out with ease. The Terrans must have endless patience to coddle such antics. I just saved your lives. I am not going through a song and dance to prove myself. I snarled. Stalking back to the cockpit, my destination switched to Earth. The humans could deal with the Xyrillian pets and also learn the consequences of their mercy. The United Nations should be warned of Shazar's intent. However, flagrant interference would sever my ties with the Dominion. I wasn't sure I wanted to openly oppose my people. As much as I longed for societal overhaul, Arxor resistance was in its infancy. A two-front war was a steep task for primitive omnivores. It wasn't clear whether the empathetic humans could be trusted to pull their weight or support our cause. Sticking my neck out wasn't worth it without future rewards. Perhaps it was best to let Silas and Fall slip back into Dominion possession. End of story. I would quickly like to thank our Tier 5 patrons, Dragzoon W.R.E, Quantum Wednesday, Ambrose Cattell, Lord Ashrakal, Bushmaster 177, Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, and Arcadian. Thank you very much.